sometimes they find human trafficking and prostitution. 10 of those 1,000 will show up to the door. And we rip the data on the phone. That's where you find the victims. You find other people they're messaging. You find child porn distribution, production and distribution. The other thing we see is a lot of illegal immigrants. He had a woman locked in a trailer. Target these individuals who are targeting kids.
So it's a small town. Nobody thinks this is happening there. How do you, you come in, you give a training course, then what?
So I'd known this sheriff. This guy just got elected sheriff. I'd known him for a while, and he's a good guy. His name is Eric Blankenship. But anyway, so EB says, hey, dude, let's do the tactical training, but I don't think you're going to get to hook anybody. I said, well, just let us teach you the process, and we'll get what we get. This is not a prostitution sting. Law enforcement commonly does prostitution stings, and the reason they do that is because prostitution across the nation is a misdemeanor crime, but that gives them their probable cause for hopefully a felony drug arrest, maybe finding a certain person's forbidden or a warrant. So they're looking at a pretty shoddy, pretty shaky misdemeanor case, although they've got it, to hopefully lead to a bigger case. Does that make sense? That's why they do prostitution stings. And then sometimes they find human trafficking and prostitution. We don't like that. We like building a felony case on the front end to hopefully find victims, whether they're of age or underage, of real human trafficking. And so we show them how to do that. And we say, this is not a prostitution sting. We don't care about drugs. We're not looking for drugs or murder or warrants or any of those things. If we find them, great. We still move forward with them like we normally would. But this is our focus, and it's solicitation of a minor with an electronic device. And I'll give you this county in Alabama. For the Alabama state law, it'd be 13A6122, 13A6124, solicitation of a minor and travel to meet a minor for sexual purposes, because they're going to show up to the location. And then 13A615, I believe it is, which is human trafficking 1 attempt in the state of Alabama. It meets state law for human trafficking 1 attempt. Those are the 3 felony charges we're looking for. The last one that we might get is 13A6111, which is transmitting obscene material to a minor. That's like if somebody sends a nude picture of themselves or sending those bad images to a minor, right? And these guys reach out to us. So we start off with a decoy-based operation on a sex platform. Let's use it. Backpage used to be the big thing. I'll just say back. You remember when Backpage, you've ever heard of the Feds shut it down? Mm-hmm. But you can run ads on a bunch of different things. I won't name the places that we run ads normally, but you go to one of these sex sites like Backpage, and you run an ad that says, hey, it's a girl, it's 19 years old. And these sites, by the way, they allow us with our law enforcement email to run these ads without getting kicked off, because what we'll do is we'll have somebody reach out, hey, are you available, for a QV, for a quick visit, or how much for a quick visit. And so we have our law enforcement investigator that we're teaching how to chat, teaching the lingo, and we're just kind of over their shoulder, hey, you need to say this, or maybe we're on the phone with them showing them what to say, and send it back. Yeah, are you cool with, young chicks, or going through the process, because we have to establish an age. We're already on a sex site, so we know what they're there for, and we have to establish an age. If we chat 1,000 people, I like using the 1,000 people as an example. If we chat 1,000 people, 900 of them won't answer you back when you tell them that you're underage or you're young. If you tell them you're 15 or 14 or 13, or whatever age that the prosecutor requires in the area we're in, because it's different, not just per state, per county, per jurisdiction. So most of the time, 900 of those 1,000 people won't even respond. They'll tell you to pound sand. They'll say, you don't need to be doing this, and they won't answer back. 100 of those people will entertain it. They'll entertain it. So 10% will converse back and forth, entertain. They might say, you don't need to be doing this. Let's talk. Let's meet. But they're entertaining it. 10 of those 1,000 will show up to the door. Will show up and buy again. Those are the ones we're looking for, because now they've committed the overt act. And now we've got a solid, airtight case that they can't wiggle out of. They're going to get prosecuted. So we have the apprehension when they show up, and we have the prosecution. We also do mobile stings. We do vehicle takedowns, but they're still showing up to meet us in a vehicle. And that is how we target these specific individuals. Now, when you target that specific individual, our probable cause case is generally built off of messaging through a phone or whatever messaging platform. So we have to tie those messages together. That's easy. We have that. But when we do that, we get a warrant to rip the data off the phone. Now, you're familiar with that with your work with the agency and all that stuff. So we will rip the data off the phone via warrant, sometimes via consent, but very rarely do we get that. Most of the time, it's a warrant based on our probable cause arrest, and we rip the data on the phone. That's where you find the victims. You find other people they're messaging. You find other kids that they've either received child porn. So you see child porn distribution, child porn production and distribution, and you start finding other victims. And that's where you find individuals who are truly nefarious. And then also not just kids, but also women. We had a guy who was rolled, he had a woman locked in a trailer that he was performing sex acts on. She was an illegal immigrant. And he would snatch her, lock her up for 3 days, do all kinds of stuff, and release her. And then it just kind of intermittent would do this. And she had no recourse. She was afraid to go to the police. She was in her 30s. Why was she afraid to go to the police? Well, she thought she'd be deported, right? So that's real victims. Those are real trafficked people who are suffering. Now, she wasn't stolen and put in a circle and sold all over. She would be released a couple days later, go back to her family. But this is what was happening to her because she had no recourse. So you find victims in this. Now, the rescue doesn't always look what we think it looks like. That woman was just like, thank you so much. I can breathe now and go back to my normal life without this guy doing it, doing this stuff to me. The other thing we see is a lot of illegal immigrants. We arrested 7 last week with a couple agencies, and 3 of the 7 were illegal immigrants. So they'll be deported. We've seen that tick up even more and more. The 6 that I was talking about down in Henry County a couple years ago when the sheriff said you won't get anybody, 2 of those were illegal immigrants. 1 we did a pretty extensive interview with. I say we, the Homeland Security guy in charge of that did an extensive interview with. And one of the interesting things that the guy said, he's like, hey, I can show you exactly where I crossed the border. I crossed with some really bad people. We're like, what do you mean really bad people? And so he said, all men, describing who they are. I mean, we have terrorist cells in this country that are crossing the border. So there's some of that stuff that you're able to dig deeper into, and that then the FBI or Homeland Security, whoever, will get a hold of and be able to run that in a little bit deeper. So these operations are kind of they span out into multiple things, where it might be child exploitation, it might be prostitution-based human trafficking, it might go to labor trafficking, it might go to a terrorist cell that is moving people across the border, or a terrorist cell that got moved across the border. So it might just be strict illegal immigration, and we now can deport somebody. So it kind of flowers off into a bunch of different peddles child porn production and distribution. And so that's why we like running these operations, because it, generally speaking, when they see it, they're easy to do, and it gives the law enforcement officer or the law enforcement agency the most bang for their buck. They're at the local level. The feds then have the ability to adopt that case. And whatever state you work in, the U.S. Attorney's Office generally wants to adopt a solid state case. So if you have a solid state case, they'll look at it and say, do we have a federal nexus here? We have a federal nexus with this one because we've got child porn production and distribution with this guy and his 18-month-old daughter. And then the feds will step in and they'll be able to levy some heavy charges, prosecution and sentencing on that end, to coincide with what this guy's already getting at the state level, because every state doesn't have that same heavy lever to pull when it comes to maybe child porn distribution. So the reason I say all that, that's how everything works together.
Yeah.
It's not always perfect, but the goal is to just target these individuals who are targeting kids. And generally speaking, when you find that, you find they have other victims, other people they're targeting.
Damn. So just webs and webs and webs.
Yep. A never-ending web is what it feels like a lot of times.
Damn. Damn. What are some of the commonalities you see in the victims?
Women.
All women.
I would say that the biggest demographic that's targeted is women. And then if it's men, if it's never grown men are targeted, boys are targeted, but women more so than anything. DOJ and American Psychiatric Association statistic on this end is for every male-female encounter, opposite sex encounter, primarily male to female, there are 50 victims before the perpetrator's prosecuted.
50?
50 victims, yeah, that's the statistic. I think they said plus or minus 10% in their study, and this study is like 15 years old. For every same sex or primarily male to male, right? It's 150 victims plus or minus 10% before the perpetrator is prosecuted.
Shit.
So you might get an apprehension. You might actually make an arrest, but if you don't have a prosecution, you've done nothing. It's symbolism without substance. And that's what they're saying. This guy might have been arrested for it, but the 50 victims come before prosecution. The 150 victims come before prosecution, not before arrest. They will still have victims even after they're arrested.
Shit. Damn, man. Damn. Is there more adult women or more minors? No matter where you're watching Shawn Ryan Show from, if you get anything out of this, please like, comment, subscribe, and most importantly, share this everywhere you possibly can. And if you're feeling extra generous, please leave us a review on Apple and Spotify podcasts.